So obviously you want to know how you can graduate uni debt-free, and that's specifically in the UK. So I know in America and certain other countries they have lots of scholarship schemes and things like that. But what I found is for the average uni in the UK, or in England specifically, you don't actually have many options for scholarship funding, especially not full ride scholarships, or even like partial ride. Like, they'll give you a small sum of money, but that's about it. Anyway, so this is the context on why I ended up not taking out the student loan and how UK universities work. So yes, as I was saying, you can't actually get full scholarship funding for unis in the UK on an average uni. Like, I'm pretty sure Oxbridge and some of the bigger, better unis have better funding opportunities, but not the usual university. So I just went to a very bog standard university, and that's why I wanted to make this video on how to graduate debt-free, because when I was looking, like 5 years ago when I started uni, I actually had no resources. There was one man that was very usefully telling me to apply to student finance, even if I didn't want to get student finance funding, but I didn't do that, and that's part one of my method, so make sure you listen to that. I don't remember who that man is, although I would give him credit, but I absolutely don't remember who he was, so sorry about that. But if I do figure it out, I'll link him in my description, and if you know who he is, then also you can comment that and I'll give him credit as well. So the reason why I decided not to take the loan was for religious reasons. So in my religion, you shouldn't take out anything interest-based. So loans are of course interest-based, that's how you're able to borrow, and you have to pay it back with interest. And so that concept is not actually allowed in my religion. I am a Muslim, and so that was a kind of huge point of contention for me. I know that some scholars say it's fine, you can take the student loan, and you know, if that's your opinion, that's completely fine by me, because I'm also a little bit on the fence about it, because it's not like a typical loan. You don't have to pay it back all in full. It depends on how much you earn. There's a cutoff, like at a certain age, I think you just stop paying it. So it's not actually like a traditional loan. And obviously we need higher education, because you can't get jobs without higher education, and you cannot then, you know, exist without a job. So in that sense, I can understand why you take the student loan. But I thought, you know what, if I can do it without, then I'll try to do it without. But I always had that kind of knowledge of, I know that, you know, if the worst situation happens, I can fall back and take the student loan. Like, I'm not 100% against it or anything like that. I just didn't want to. And I just wanted to try my best and see if I could do it without. And alhamdulillah, I managed to do it. And alhamdulillah, I managed to do it, and so can you. That was very rambly. Essentially, I didn't want to take it for my religious reasons. And I thought, although I'm not 100% religiously against it, I thought if I can try and do it without, that would be better in general, because I'm graduating debt-free, but also it depends on how you look at it, because I'm not going to be working my entire life. I do kind of want to move to more businessy, solopreneurship type of stuff. So yeah, it just depends on how you look at it, because is it really worth graduating debt-free when I'm paying 30k in full, when I'm not going to be working the entire time? I don't know, but for somebody who is going to be working their entire life, and that's the plan, I would 100% say that paying off the debt does actually make more sense than for me, who I probably will work for about 10 to 15 years. And then I just, you know, when I get married and I have children, sorry, not married. And it's just like, you know, like if I ever become a mother, inshallah, then I don't really want to be working full time. So with my plans, I don't know if it's the best return on investment in terms of just like financially. But in terms of the skills that I've learned, in terms of the lessons and like just perseverance and figuring out how to do things, yeah, I think it's pretty worth it. But again, it just depends on how you look at it. And so for you, student loan might just be the more responsible option. Either way, I'm not endorsing either way, but I'm just telling you how I did it and how you can too, if you want to graduate debt-free. It is actually possible, unlike what I imagined when I started uni 5 years ago, and I just had no guidance really, and I was just kind of paving my own path and literally reinventing the wheel, because I didn't know anybody that had done this before. And so if you're watching this video, now you know somebody who has done this before and will be able to advise you a little bit. Now, this video is going to break down my like 3-step method that I used to essentially pay for my uni as I was going through it. So I didn't have huge amounts of saving or anything like that. So you can do it even without savings, although I wouldn't advise. But I'll get into that in a moment. And this method is going to allow you to graduate completely debt-free, inshallah. And I've also thrown in a bonus point at the end, okay? So stay till the end for that bonus point. So number one is you're not going to take out a student loan, but you are going to apply to Student Finance England, or whatever the website is called, and you're going to get a loan out of £0. Okay, why are you doing this? Well, actually, when you apply for the student finance loan, or whatever it's called, I'm just going to call it student finance, okay? When you apply for student finance, the company takes all of your information. So like your parents' earnings, I don't know, whether you had bursary, scholarships, blah, blah, like all of your circumstances, it takes that into account. And this is perfect because usually, or for my uni anyway, and I'm pretty sure this is the case for a lot of unis, they give out an achievement scholarship, and that's just a sum of £500, which doesn't seem like much now that I'm making I say a lot of money, but a lot more money than I was back then. But I was just starting out, I was 18, and I didn't have much earnings. Like, I literally was earning pennies for my work, and £500 was like a make or break between am I able to pay my tuition fees or not. So that was a huge lump of money for me back then. Honestly, it is a big amount of money even now, but I just mean in terms of that funding and the paying off my tuition fees, it would have been a huge help. But sadly, I did not apply to student finance like the man on the internet had advised me to do, and I therefore didn't get the £500 scholarship. I knew though that I had actually qualified for it because I had gotten decent in my A levels, and I was like from the kind of low income background, or low to medium income background, and so I did qualify for it. And I remember how disappointed I felt when I checked my portal and I saw that it said not eligible, and I read all of the criteria and I was literally eligible for every single thing. But because I hadn't applied to student finance, nobody knew that I was eligible, because if you don't apply to student finance, there's an assumption that, well, firstly, they don't know anything about your details, and there's an assumption that you can afford to pay it off because of your home background or whatever it might be, which wasn't the case at all for me. So that's the first thing. Apply to student finance with £0 asking, okay? Because that then allows you to be registered with the company, and all your details are registered, so you can then be eligible for whatever scholarships you are actually eligible for. There was a £50 scholarship, I don't know what it was, like a £50 gift, I guess, that they were giving every student. So I got that, but £500 would have made a huge difference for me back then in my first semester. Now also, please apply for this straight away, because I know how to do this now because I applied for it in my second year, but that was largely useless because for some weird reason, they don't actually use any new information. They literally base all of the scholarships they're going to give you throughout the 3 years, or for my case, 4 years, on the very first year application that you've made. And because I didn't make that, I wasn't eligible for anything. So actually I lost out on about either £1,000 or £1,500, because it was like 500 at the start of my first year, my second year for sure, but I don't know if they gave it to me my final year or not. So big money, okay? 1,500 is literally one of the installments for a year. So please, please, please make that application. It's going to take a little bit of time, but it honestly is going to benefit you so much more than the time that it takes, because student finance is just a bit finicky and a bit annoying. Okay, so that's step number one. Make sure, please, that you do that. Number two, I actually got help for my very first installment in my first year. My dad gave me, I think, about 1,500. It might have been a little bit more than that, or a little bit less. I can't actually remember. This is pounds because we're in the UK, and my aunt gave me £500, and honestly I'm really, really thankful for their help, because without that I would have been super, super stressed, because uni is already a jump from A levels, right? Like, I was adjusting to everything, new people, new content, like the style of teaching, everything's really, really different. And I'm also working at the same time, but I was working for pennies because back then my tutoring was a very new and fresh experience, and because I was so young, people didn't take me as seriously. And so I was literally earning like £7 an hour, £8 an hour. I think the most that I earned was £10 an hour. But I had a lot more of the £7, £8 hours because I was working with this lady, and she kind of sourced the customers, and then she would give them to me. But it was all just kind of like this low-key business sort of thing, so she didn't pay much. Anyway, so without their help, my dad and my aunts, honestly, I would have struggled so much, because the very first installment is absolutely ruthless. Like, the entire year costs £9,250, but the very first installment is half of that amount. So it's £4,125. I'm just going to say something like that. I think it was that though. And you have to pay that in full. I don't know what happens if you didn't pay it, because I was able to pay it each of the years, alhamdulillah. So I didn't have enough money for that. And you might be thinking, well, I thought you were working, da da da. I actually had this whole situation where I didn't want to go to uni. I wanted to take a gap year. And at the last minute, I decided to take the offer up at the uni that I'd been given. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't have any savings. I don't want to take out a student loan. That's also why I hadn't applied for student finance. And I just kind of thought it was too late, but it wasn't. It was not too late. Like, you can apply at any time, especially in the first few months, like August, September. I don't know about October, but you can apply in those first few months. I'll check it for you and when I write it here, when you can stop applying or when you have to stop applying. And I just didn't do any of that stuff. And so I was working so hard, teaching, tutoring. And then I was studying so hard, and I was like, we were going through it, and we were just coming out of COVID as well. And so everything was a lot harder. It was like online, and nobody really talked in the lectures. And I was just like, what is this? But eventually, I obviously got the hang of things. But in the first semester, and this is due, by the way, at the end of September or October, within the first 2 months, you have to pay off half of your fees for the year, which you might be thinking, okay, well, it's at least not the whole entire thing, but it's so much. Like, when you don't have savings and you didn't have a proper plan and you started it and you literally only have £2,000, it's so difficult. And I was just so stressed out. And I just remember telling my parents, I don't know how I'm going to do this and stuff. And then at the end, my dad and my auntie helped me out, as I keep saying, because I'm actually really, really grateful. And they kind of boosted me up to the full 4,125. I remember I just about made it, because I was planning on how I'm going to go on and tell the finance office, I actually can't afford this. Can you put me on a plan? And I remember emailing and everything, and I didn't actually have to end up using any of that. But I'm pretty sure there are some plans. I just don't know how they work, and I don't know how good they are. I don't know if they charge you more, or I don't know anything about that, okay? Anyway, so the lessons that you're going to take away from this is you need to start planning and or working during sixth form. And if you're watching this now and you're going to uni in September, then you usually start mid-September or end of September. So you actually have a month and a half, roughly, to get your money up, okay? Just pick up a job anywhere. If you have already been doing tutoring, try and pick more students. But I know with freelance work it's a little bit harder to do that. But you can do, I remember there were people that were working, they were mainly boys, but I remember I saw in the group chat that people were saying that they were working for Amazon. I'm pretty sure girls can do that too if you're a little bit strong. And you can lift and stuff like that. Just get a shift anywhere that you can. Apply everywhere for a job and just start working. That's my best advice I can give you. Just literally start working, start saving right now, today. Today, make 5 applications. Tomorrow, make another 5 applications. And this entire week, make 5 applications every single day. And just get a job anywhere, because you're going to thank me when the first installment of uni comes around, okay? Also, if, for example, I was saying with tutoring, if you do have something like that already going for you, or you want to start, I actually have an entire video dedicated to tutoring itself, but this kind of works for any service-based business. I will link this for you here. And essentially, if you're good at something, you have a skill, I don't know, you can do hair, you can do nails, you can teach people, you can do repairs, whatever it might be that your skill is, you can actually make really decent money off of it if you market yourself good. But you always start off with word of mouth. That's actually how all business, I think, all service business as well, starts off. It's got to be word of mouth, and it's got to be this person does good work. And then they'll be like, oh, okay, who is it? And they'll be like, oh, it's so-and-so. And then they kind of refer you like that. But 100%, if you don't know where to start with that alongside looking and applying for jobs. Because I know it's hard to get a job. But if you apply to 100 jobs, you will get one, right? Obviously, given that your CV is not complete rubbish. But I'm sure your CV isn't complete rubbish. And there's always ways to get those checked using CV checkers and asking your friends and family and whatever. And using a specific CV template as well. I'll put that here somewhere. I might make a job as well on how to get it, how I landed my grad role, but that's a little bit different to this. Either way. Yeah, so I'm going to just record where I left off, okay? So we covered the first 2 points, and then the third point is now to do the math, okay? To figure out how many hours you have to work to be able to pay your fees. Which doesn't seem like rocket science, but what you want to do is have actual numerical figures, so you have an idea of the number of hours that you're going to have to work each week to sustain this goal of yours, and then you can work from there and figure out how to balance things. Okay, so this is the last step of the 3-step method. to the madness, and I've written out actually because it just makes it easy that way. I thought I'd type it up for the last segment. And I also couldn't be bothered to get back in my very warm teddy hoodie because it's just way too warm for that. So if you, for example, have to pay $9,250, which is what I paid. I think the fees have gone up, I'm not entirely sure, but don't quote me on that, a year, then you know that you're going to, for example, if you work and you're paid £10 an hour, which was actually quite a lot. Like, that's a lot for me, because when I started, I was earning like £7 or £8 an hour, and I was working many hours. Like, I was working close to full-time as well as being a full-time student, so it was like 2 full-time commitments. It was a lot. Either way, so if you're paid £10 an hour, then that means that you have to work 925 hours in the year. Okay? And then that's a little over about 77 hours, it's like 77 point something hours in a month that you need to work to sustainably reach your goal of paying off your uni fees, and then that gives you about 19 hours per week. So you can essentially work a job that's 20 hours a week, so a part-time job, because that's 20 hours a week, and you can pay off your uni fees. Granted that you have that first £4,125 instalment, you have that out the way. So what I mean is you have some sort of plan to work towards to reach that £4,125 first instalment and be able to jump over that hurdle. Because if you don't, you're going to really struggle. It's not impossible, but it's going to be very difficult. Okay? And that doesn't seem too bad, right? 20 hours a week is fine. It's fine. You can do it. Maybe if you work on the weekends or if you work some evenings, you can definitely do it. It's like 2 or 3 days. Now, of course, if you're earning less than this, you will have to work a little bit more, my dear, just as I did in the first year of uni. But if you are earning more, then lucky you. Like if you're earning £15 an hour, £20 an hour, then you have to work 10 hours only a week or 15 hours only a week, which is excellent. Okay, so figure out your finance situation, figure out how much you can get paid, and sort it from there, okay? But this is the math. So 20 hours a week means you can pay off your student loan as long as you have that it's just the first one. It's not the first installment every single year. It's just the first installment of when you're at uni for the first time ever, okay? So if you have that sorted out, then you've got the rest of your year sorted out. Granted that you are working, obviously, throughout the years. Okay, and that pretty much sums up my entire 3 steps that you can use to graduate completely debt-free in the UK university. So in English universities, I went to a very box standard university, and I'm pretty sure that the more premium and fancy universities actually have more funding opportunities for their students, but my university didn't really, other than the £500 scholarships for each year. So good luck, I'm wishing you all the best, and if you stayed all the way till the end of the video, then I'm going to give you this bonus information, which is not really a part of the 3 steps to pay for your university tuition in full, but it's more just in terms of how to manage. So you've got a lot of things going on. You've got a full-time commitment and you've got a part-time commitment, which is work, and the full-time commitment is being a student. And you're going to have to learn, which is going to take some time naturally, how to balance your full-time commitment with your part-time commitment. And if you're working more than 20 hours a week because you're earning less, then it's even worse, you know, because it's more hours than 20. And it's going to take some getting used to, and you need to, of course, balance it and manage it in such a way that you are not letting your studies take the hit, because at the end of the day, you're doing all of this because you want to graduate debt-free, but you want to graduate with a good degree, you know, you don't want to graduate debt-free, but then you just failed a degree. That doesn't really add up. So a few little tips for that, I would say, is schedule and plan your week ahead, because that's what I did, and that's literally the only way that I managed to, you know, do well in my degree. And without that, you're going to really struggle. I'll be honest with you, you will struggle, okay? So schedule the week ahead on the Sunday, okay? Schedule and plan your week on the Sunday night before. That's my best advice to you. And then that way you can know exactly when you're going to study, exactly when you're going to have your downtime, exactly when you're going to be working, and you can kind of work around that. And of course, when I said your downtime, you must plan realistic downtime. You've probably heard this lots and lots and lots, but you need to do this so that you can avoid burnout. And that is a huge one, because if you're burnt out by the second year of uni, you are going to really struggle in your final year to really put it together, do the grade, like get the grades that you need, because final year is like 75% or 70%, depending on your scheme, of your grade. And if you can't sustain the working and the studying and everything, and final year is always the hardest year as well in terms of the module difficulties, you're going to struggle. Okay, so please don't burn yourself out doing all this. So plan a realistic time not to burn out. And again, don't work more than you need to. Okay, you might think, oh, I might as well work and kind of save up the buffer, but don't do that, because you have all the time that you come out of uni when you've got a job that's paying you a lot more, hopefully, to save, and you can use that time afterwards. So don't burn yourself out just working more than you need to because you want to save up and you want to be ahead of your peers and da-da-da. That can wait. Okay, don't work more than you need to. Okay, and then my very final tip is plan your commute time to work. So I did work online, I did work at a tuition centre next to my house. It's actually 12 minutes a walk away, and I found that job on Indeed. It was my first ever job. And on the way there, I didn't do this all the time, if I'm being honest, but because oftentimes I was just rushing to get there. I actually have a really bad habit of being late to everything. So you can plan, okay? That doesn't mean that you need to plan to study all the time. Like, yes, you can review flashcards some days, but some days you can just chill. You can just actively, intentionally decide, I'm going to scroll for 20 minutes today on my way to work, okay? Or on my way back from work because I think I deserve it. That's completely fine. Everybody has a stigma against scrolling. It's not scrolling that's the issue. It's the limitlessness, the heedlessness of it all. If you say to yourself, I'm going to scroll for 20 minutes and then you get off in 20 minutes, that's actually not a problem at all. Some might argue that no, it is, because you're kind of exposing your brain to so many different things. And yes, there's like arguments for and against, but intentionality is much better than heedlessness, okay? So be intentional. So if you want to have intentional downtime in your commute time, then so be it. If you want to have intentionally doing flashcards or reviewing the lecture that you did today, then so be that as well. But just be intentional, okay? I hope what you understand from this is you have to be very intentional. If you want to execute an ambitious goal, okay, here it's just ambitious compared to your peers, but in general in life, if you want to execute and follow through on a very ambitious goal, you need to be intentional with everything that you do, okay? It doesn't mean intentionally not giving yourself time off, because that's counterproductive. But it means just be intentional with every single thing that you're doing, always. Okay? Excellent. Right, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a like and a subscribe, because I post more of the similar sort of content. And if you enjoyed this video, you're definitely going to enjoy this video that I've posted on how I make £2,500 a week. Oh, I wish. £2,500 a month, just working 18 hours a week. And this might be very, very feasible and sustainable for you if you are a uni student, okay? Because it's perfect for the whole working less, making more, and funding your university journey. Alright, best of luck from me.